First things first, we are not going to have our quiz today because I had less than 2 hours notice that we were going to be completely virtual today. I was prepared. However, if we are unexpectedly virtual again on Monday, we will still be doing quiz 2 over 6.3 and 6.4 on Monday. If that's the case, then it will be on Canvas. Hopefully we'll be back in person. Assuming that we are back in person, then that quiz will be on paper. So today we're going to continue with graphing. We were in the middle of a graph for a sine function when we had to leave yesterday. So we're going to finish that up, and then we're also going to learn how to graph cosine today. Monday, we'll continue to do some more examples after we take your quiz. So hopefully that answers people's questions as far as the quiz goes. I have down at the bottom moved the answers for the review down there along with the worked out solutions. So you guys have a little bit longer to study for that. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up what we were working on yesterday. I believe this is where we left off. We had found our amplitude was 1. Is anybody else having difficulties hearing me? Did you get it figured out, Noah? Okay. Okay, no worries. I just thank you for saying something, because yeah, the last thing I want is to just keep rolling on and find out that I'm on mute at the end, because that's not helpful. Okay. We had left off here. I need to do this real quick. There we go. We found out that our amplitude was 1. Our period is pi. So we're going to complete one full period, one full cycle, one full trip around the unit circle in pi across that x-axis. We found our left endpoint because we have this shift. We still need to find our right endpoint. And we had gone ahead and set this up. We need to actually finish now. The way we find our right endpoint, we're going to take whatever's inside the parentheses, 2x minus pi over 2. And to figure out exactly how it's been shifted along the x-axis, we're going to take it and set it equal to 2 pi. I'm going to need to add pi over 2 to both sides. What do I get when I add pi over 2 to both sides? What will I have when I add pi over 2 to both sides? That would be if it was pi plus pi over 2, Brendan. Remember, 2 pi would be what over 4? Or sorry, what over 2? 5 pi over 2, yeah. Because if I add pi over 2 to both sides, I have 2.5 pi, and that's the same thing as 5 pi over 2. Then I need to divide both sides by 2. And when I do that, I get what? Five pi over what? Five pi over 4, yes. Okay, so here's my left endpoint. Here's my right endpoint. So I'm going to think about my parent sine function, which means I'm going to think about the unit circle. It's a really bad circle. That's only slightly better. Over here, my ordered pair is 0, 1. The parent for sine starts at 0. Normally, we would plot our point for this at 0, 0. But that's the left endpoint for the parent. This has been shifted over to pi over 4. This left endpoint is now right here. We go around our unit circle and we end up right back here. So this is 0 radians, but then when we make one full cycle, one full period, we're at 2 pi. So my sine value is again back at 0. Once we've completed one full period, we are going to be at 5 pi over 4. That's what it means that my left endpoint is 5 pi over 4. All right, so I want you guys to think about the unit circle. As I make this trip around the unit circle, is there anywhere else that the sine value is 0, other than where I start and where I finish? Is there anywhere else around this unit circle where my sine value is 0? (180°). So over here at pi, I'm at -1, 0, and that's halfway around the unit circle. So if I go halfway around the unit circle, my sine value comes back to 0. I want you to look right here because I'm doing it faster this time. We're going around the unit circle faster. So I'm not going to be at pi, but I want halfway in between the left and the right. Where is halfway in between the left endpoint and the right endpoint? 3 pi over 4, yes. So at 3 pi over 4, I am right back here in the middle. When I'm talking about my sine values, right here would be from the beginning to the halfway point. So that's like where this orange arrow is here. What is my sine value up here at the top? Because that's what it's going to hit in between the beginning and the halfway point. What is my sine value up there? 1, yes. 0, 1. So this sine value is going to go halfway in between these two. So at pi over 2, I'm going to go up to 1. And I know I'm going up to 1 because of my amplitude here. All right, so I've got my sine wave. I start at 0. I come up to my high point. I go here. I come back down to the x-axis. What happens on the bottom part of the unit circle as I come down around this way? What happens down here? What is my sine value? Halfway in between as I make this bottom journey. Yeah, I go down to -1. This is 0, -1. So halfway in between these two, I'm going to go down to the minimum, down to -1. So right down here. And there's one full period right there. When we were talking about this yesterday, I told you guys you're going to have to graph how many full periods for me. How many full periods do you need to graph for me? 2 full periods. We can go forwards with it. We can go backwards with it. Why don't we go forwards with this one? So if I was going to continue this pattern on in this direction and get another full period, where do I go after this? How do I start repeating that pattern again so that my wave continues on? Where should I put my next point? Give me the whole XY pair. I want to make sure that I plot this in the right spot. Where should this next point go? Three pi over 2 and 1. Yes. So we're going to come up here. Where to after that? Come on, guys. I need everybody to participate in the chat with me. Or you can unmute your mic. You're welcome to do that if you'd rather just speak. 7 pi over 4. So right here. And where should my dot go? Where vertically should my dot go at the 7 pi over 4? At 0. Yep, we're going to come back the x-axis. All right, and then after that, where do I go? 2 pi and -1, thank you. And last but not least, where do I go to get my second full period? Nine pi over 4 and then back to 0. Yep, so I'm going to label 9 pi over 4. We come back to 0 and we have our second full period. Awesome. What is the domain of this particular sine function? What is my domain? Negative infinity to positive infinity. And what about my range? -1 to +1. Yep, we're going to put brackets around that because it is inclusive. We have dots there. It is not exclusive. All right. I want to do another graph with sine. So we're going to first identify our amplitude and our period, our left endpoint and our right endpoint, and then we're going to set up our x-axis based on that. We're going to graph 2 full periods. I want you guys to take notice of the pattern that sine has. So running right through the middle of my sine wave is the x-axis. Remember, we called that the midline. We start right on the midline, and then it goes up to its maximum. Then we come back down to the midline. We go down to our minimum, and then back to the midline. So my sine wave, we start on the midline, and then we go up, down, up, and then we end on the midline. Okay, I'm going to put the next example up here. All right, first question. Ooh. Before I ask anything about amplitude or period, what do you guys notice on the end of this one that was not on our previous problem? What do you notice on the end of this one that was not on the previous problem? +1. What's that going to do to my graph? Midline moves up. Yes. We are going to shift that midline up 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. So on my graph, up 1, I'm going to draw a little dashed line right here. And everything that I do with my sine wave is going to treat this as if it is the x-axis, because everything is getting shifted up 1. So this is my midline. So when I talk about where I start And where I go from there, we're going to start on the midline, and then we will go up whatever our amplitude is, then we'll go back to the midline, then we will go down whatever our amplitude is, and we will end back on our midline. So everything is in relationship to that midline. What is the amplitude for this particular graph? What is our amplitude? Two. We take the absolute value of A. In this case, our A value is 2. So our amplitude is 2. This is going to be above. That's not how you spell above. And below the midline. We're using our midline as our reference. We oscillate on either side of that midline there. All right, what is my period for this one? What is the period? How do I determine the period? Close, Brendan. Period, I do 2 pi over the absolute value of B. My A value is 2, but my B value is what? B value is 1. We find our B value right here. So I'm just doing 2 pi divided by 1. So the period for this graph is going to be 2 pi, just like the parent. Okay. I need my left endpoint and my right endpoint. And then I'm going to go ahead and set up my X and Y axis. Left endpoint, we're going to take and set equal to 0. Right endpoint, we're going to take and set equal to 2 pi. Because that's the beginning and ending for one full revolution around the unit circle for the parent. We have some type of a shift happening here, and setting my left endpoint and my right endpoint equal to where it would be for the parent tells me exactly where this period is going to shift to for my transformation. So I'm going to take x minus pi over 4. I'm going to set that equal to 0. So then I add pi over 4 to both sides. My left endpoint is just going to be pi over 4. My right endpoint, same basic setup, x minus pi over 4, set that equal to 2 pi. What will I get here when I add pi over 4 to both sides? What will I get when I add pi over 4 to both sides? Nine pi over 4, thank you. Okay. Deciding how to set up my x-axis, I'm looking at a couple of things. Unless there's a problem, we want to count pi over 4s along that x-axis. Here, since I see these denominators are both over 4, I'm pretty sure that that's a good plan. I just have to make sure that I can fit at least 2 full periods on this graph that I have in front of me. So I need to make sure that I can go from pi over 4 to 9 pi over 4, and then I have enough space to do that again, either in front of or behind it. So let's label our axis with pi over 4s and see if it'll fit. So I have 1 pi over 4, and then 2 pi over 4, which is going to reduce down to pi over 2, and then 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which reduces down to just pi, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, which reduces down to 3 pi over 2, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4 reduces down to 2 pi. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more because that'll take me out to 9 pi over 4. Why did I want to take this out to 9 pi over 4? Why was it important for me to take this out to 9 pi over 4? Yep, that's where my period ends. That's what allows me to get one full period because we're not starting at 0, 0, so I don't want to stop it at 2 pi. Nope, I wrote that ordered pair down wrong. All right, so my parent function for sine normally starts at 0 radians, and my sine value is 0. So if this was the parent, I would plot that first point right there. But my left endpoint has shifted over to pi over 4. What has happened to my whole graph? The reason that we did that red dashed line. I shifted over to the right because of my left endpoint, but I can't leave my dot there because something else happens to my whole graph. It all shifted up 1. Absolutely. So I can't leave that dot there. It has to go up to the midline. My sine wave starts on the midline. Our midline shifted up, so we also have to shift up. My left endpoint is at 9 pi over 4, which is also on the midline. Where else will we hit the midline? Where else will I hit the midline? 5 pi over 4, absolutely. Halfway in between these two, and that halfway point is right here, we're going to come back and touch the midline. What happens in between these 2 points? What's going to happen in between those 2 points? Am I going to go up and then back to the midline, or am I going to go down and then back to the midline? We're going to go up. How far up do I need to go off the midline? I need to go up 2. I need to go up 2 units off my midline because of my amplitude. So like that. Where's my next point going to go so that I can finish out one full period? I know it's going to fall in here somewhere. Where is that next point going to go so that I can finish one full period? Seven pi over 4 and -1. Yes. Because remember, I'm going 2 units away from the midline, not from the x-axis. Perfect. Do I have enough room to fit another full period on here? Anywhere on my graph? Remember, I can go forwards or backwards. Do I have enough room to go forwards or backwards and repeat this pattern again? I can go backwards. Tell me where to put my next point so that I can repeat this pattern, but behind what I've already done. Where does my next point belong? Negative pi over 4. Negative pi over 4 and what? What should the y part be? Where do I want that next point? Up at 1? Right here? Negative 1. There we go. I'm going to bring this down like this. Where to after that? Give me the full ordered pair. Where are we going? I want the x and the y. Negative 5 pi over 4 and 0. Negative 5 pi over 4 and 1. Let's see what you think of that. Does that look right? Negative 3 pi over 4 and 1. There we go. Much better. Come back up to the midline. That's really looking horrible there. Where to after negative 3 pi over 4? Ugh, I get so picky about these. There, much better. Where should I go after that? Negative 5 pi over 4 and 3, right up here. And give me my last point so that I can finish out this second full period. Negative 7 pi over 4 and 1. Beautiful. Awesome. Okay. What is the domain for this? What is our domain? Negative infinity to positive infinity. What about my range? What is my range? Negative 1 to 3, inclusive. So we've got brackets. Awesome. Okay, I want to move on and spend the rest of our class time learning how to graph cosine, and hopefully we'll have time for a transformation on cosine. I want you to take another minute. Pay very close attention to sine. Sine starts on my midline because the parent starts at 0. So I start on the midline and then we go up to our maximum, down to our midline, down to our minimum, and then back up to our midline. So we start on a midline and then we go up, down, up. All right, cosine, cosine, cosine. We are going to graph our cosine function. So first thing I want to do is set up my x-axis, pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, but that's just pi, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, which reduces, 7 pi over 4, and then 8 pi over 4, which reduces down to 2 pi. I want you to think about cosine now. So I'm thinking about my unit circle again, but now instead of looking at the sine value around that unit circle, I want to look at the cosine value. around that unit circle. When I start off at 0 radians, what is the cosine value there? Cosine value is 1. So at 0 radians on the x-axis, I'm going to go up to 1. Notice I don't start at 0, 0. So we don't start on the midline. We start with our maximum for cosine. Then we're going to travel around the unit circle until we get up here. That's pi over 2. What is the cosine part of this ordered pair? Zero now, because I'm at 0, 1. So after I start off at my maximum at pi over 2, now I come down to my midline. Continue around the unit circle, and I get over here to pi radians. What is the cosine value of pi radians? -1. So at pi radians, we dip down to -1. Keep going around my unit circle. I get down here to the bottom. That's 3 pi over 2 radians. What's the cosine part of that ordered pair? 0 again. So I start off at my maximum. I start off above the midline, whatever my amplitude is. As I travel around, we're going to go then down to the midline, then down to our minimum, back up to the midline. And when I get all the way back around to 2 pi, I'm going to plot my last point where? Up at 1. There we go. So I'm going to start up. Then I go down to my minimum. Then I come back up to my maximum. This one almost looks like a U. The other one has a mountain and then a valley. Sine has a mountain and then a valley. This one almost looks like a U here. And just like with my sine, I can continue on from here. I can also continue backwards. This is a never-ending pattern here. I'm still oscillating on either side of the x-axis. Am I still bouncing back and forth on either side of the x-axis? Is the x-axis still my midline? Is it still running through the center of this? Yes. 1 full period is 2 pi. We still have a left endpoint and a right endpoint, but those now correspond to my maximums. Halfway in between on my cosine, that corresponds to my minimum. All right, let's try a transformation of cosine, and then we will stop for today. So here comes our transformation. What is the first thing that you notice about this equation that I would need to take note of before I plot any other points? Something that I need to take note of right away. It has an amplitude of 2. Yes, it does. What else? Down 2. Yes. My midline is going to shift down 2. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to shift that midline down, and then everything else I do is going to be in relationship to that midline. So we've got our amplitude, we've got our midline shift. What is my period? What is the period? Close. 2 pi over the absolute value of b. What is my b value? 1/2. What happens when I divide 2 by 1/2? There we go, 4 pi. Oops, not 2 pi, 4 pi. I label this graph with pi over 4s. If I count by pi over 4s, so like pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, which reduces, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which reduces, will I be able to fit 2 full periods on this whole graph? If I keep doing this, 4 pi is what it takes to do a whole wave. No, I'm not going to be able to fit 2 full periods. I could fit 1, but not 2 full periods. So I can't count by my pi over 4s. Let's count by pi over 2s instead. So here's 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, 5 pi over 2, 6 pi over 2, 7 pi over 2, 8 pi over 2, 9 pi over 2, 10 pi over 2. Do you think I've got a better chance of fitting 2 full periods on there now? Yes. Okay. So now I need my left endpoint and my right endpoint. Cosine, we still start our trip around the unit circle at 0. So I'm still going to take my left endpoint and set it equal to 0. So 1/2 x minus pi equals 0. Add pi to both sides. I get 1/2 x equals pi. When I divide both sides by 1/2, what am I going to get for my left endpoint? Where will my left endpoint be? Two pi, yes. So here's my left endpoint. Right endpoint, we set that equal to 2 pi. So 1/2 x minus pi equals 2 pi. So 1/2 x equals, I'm going to add pi to both sides. So I have 3 pi. Divide both sides by 1/2. Where is my right endpoint going to end up at? Six pi. I want you to think about the cosine function. Oh, I wrote sine and I meant to write cosine. Oops. Think about our cosine function. So I'm looking at the x's. At 0 radians, we start where? At 0 radians, we start where? Maximum, minimum, or on the midline? At 0 radians. Do I start at a maximum, at a minimum, or on the midline? I know I'm going to be somewhere in here. I just need to figure out where. Maximum, minimum, or on the midline for cosine. Come on, guys, we have just a couple more minutes and I'd really like to finish this one out if we can. Maximum, yes. We're going to start up at a maximum. So above that midline, I need to be up here because we are up whatever the absolute value of A is. Same thing is going to be true over here at 6 pi. I'm going to be off my midline, whatever the absolute value of A is. What's going to happen at the halfway mark, which would be right here at 4 pi? What's going to happen at this halfway mark? At 4 pi, I'm going to be at a minimum, which is 2 units away, whatever A is, below my midline. And halfway in between a maximum and a minimum, I am going to cross that midline. So right here at 3 pi, and then again at 5 pi, so that I can see my wave here. That got real wavy. And I can continue this pattern in reverse. Right here at pi, it's going to come down to the midline again. At 0, it's going to go down to a minimum again. And then back here, midline, and then maximum. So that I can get 2 full periods. All right. What is my domain for this? What is my domain? We're going to do domain and range, and then we are all done. Negative infinity to positive infinity. What is my range? -4 to 0. Beautiful. Awesome, awesome. You guys have a homework assignment that is not due until Tuesday. I passed that out to you on paper yesterday. Homework worksheet due on Tuesday. Monday, no matter what, we will be having our quiz. So please make sure you prepare over the weekend for that quiz. We will do a couple more example problems with graphing sine and cosine, and we'll do your quiz on Monday. Have a good one, everybody. Bye.